grandfather walked 10 miles to work every day. My father walked 5. I'm driving a Cadillac. My son is in a Mercedes. Said my grandson will be in a Ferrari. But he said my great-grandson will be walking again. So I asked him, I said, well, why is that? And he said to me, tough times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create tough times. He said to me, many will not understand, but you have to raise warriors.
Welcome to the Success Journey Show. Let's travel together through the lives of individuals on the road to success.
Yo, what is going on, travelers? It's Ricky Venters and Marlon Madden, and we are back with you for another episode of the Success Journey Show. Man, we started off this one a little different. Man, wanted you guys to share this clip. Marlon, what's good, bro? How you doing?
Man, I'm loving it. Yeah, I'm gonna jump straight into it. When you shared that clip that morning with me, I saw it before, and I was really thinking I had seen it before, and I really harp on it because you know in this society you take it so many different ways because they talk about toxic masculinity, right? And that sometimes I think what we would just call being a man, some people think as toxic. So, but they don't see the residual effects of not performing within you're a man. You understand what I'm saying? Or
yeah.
I have a son. I'll even go. I'll have a son, and if I make it easier for him, is that better for him? If I give him everything he wants, is that better for him?
Yeah, it's when I saw that clip, it really resonated with me because we all have kids. You always hear the stories where the grandparents or the parents say, "Oh man, I used to walk 20 miles back and forth," and bare feet in the snow in down in Georgia, 15 feet of snow in the middle of Georgia. It's just like you hear all the stories, and we all see how each generation we were recipients of our generation being easier than the generation before. No matter what struggles or challenge we had, it's definitely been the generation before us put us in a place where we're not struggling to that same extent, right?
Right.
And then when we have our kids, it's like, you want to provide for them, you want to give them more because you have the opportunity to provide more for them. And why not put them in a different vantage point? But I also think that it's important that we don't leave out the missing the important ingredients of development, right? And I think that's what we do so often. We leave out that important ingredients of development where they don't have to work. They don't have to work for anything. So because they don't have to walk 20 miles, we can't duplicate that. But there's other things that we can duplicate, right? That same level of effort, that same level of energy, doing something else, right? And I think oftentimes that gets overlooked. But the crazy part about that that guy was breaking down was like, I made it. I was successful.
Yeah.
Great, But then the person coming after me, they're gonna be broke again. So yeah, that right there hit me hard, dude.
It's values and our guest that's coming on, he talks a lot about the times that were rough. His value, he understood what his values were or his belief system. So it's not bad to give your kids something, but if you place the value that if you still can teach them within given that something X, that hard work is still the equation to getting whatever, it's fine.
Yeah,
But some people just reward only because I can give you, because I was in a tough situation before, I will just give you. You have not earned, you have not, there's nothing, I'll just give you. And then when it turns to a point where where that child gets up and doesn't know how to operate within anything, the parent get upset. But you have never taught them to value hard work or consistency, finishing something, completing a task, doing something every day the same way to ensure that you are the best at it.
Yeah. Dude, that sums it up right there. So, I mean, and our guest today, we talk about it. We talk about it, guys. Before we get to him, just always want to remind you to check us out on our website, the Success Journey Show. Everything that we have going on there, but more importantly, so that you can share with listeners all around the world, just these great stories, these behind the scenes stories of what people are going through, their journeys. Man, we're going to try to bring some new stuff, to the platform, new stuff to the social media and everything. And listen, we're just really excited about what opportunities that we have to be able to communicate with you, right? It's a pleasure, man. We love doing this, man. And people say, oh man, one guest said, oh man, it's late, man. You guys must really love you doing this. And like this, yeah, we do. We love doing it, So man, thank you guys for being listeners. Thank you guys for being supporters. Thank you guys for traveling with us. We've come a long way in the last 4 years. 2018, we started.
3 years going into 4.
4 years at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Man.
But we've accomplished some stuff, Rick. And
oh yeah.
We're gonna have to do a video in that. Well, it's probably gonna be hard now, being that we have tenants in that house. But we're gonna have to do some video. The next one, we have another one that we're trying to knock down. Another project we're not trying to knock down. And we're gonna go to South Carolina too, Rick. We're gonna have to go to South Carolina and look at the project down there, and just show people that within the 4 years, we have done some things that some people are just, they have those long-term goals, but they're not consistent to say, this is what I need to do every day in order to achieve it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely, dude.
Oh, hey, I'm going to plug it. I know, Kiyosaki, if you ever heard this, you need to, cash flow is a game that I would tell everybody that they need to go play. It's my kind of game. It's my kind of game.
Now, man, I said that on episode 20.
Hey, I'm reiterating. I am second.
You finally got a chance to play it, man.
Got a chance to play it. It's Monopoly on steroids, and I love Monopoly. So it's Monopoly on steroids.
Yeah. Next time you're here, we have some people here. We'll play it. We'll play it. Yeah,
definitely. Definitely.
Kids love it, man. They love that game. Their friends come over and play that game.
Yeah. But I want the kids to take, because what's funny, and sorry, people, we're gonna get into our guests. What's funny? That everybody said that they never, think about all the people that were like, man, I never got taught that lesson, that lesson about housing, and I never got a chance. But you played Monopoly. If you played Monopoly, the only way to win Monopoly was to get the most property and get the houses on it. And the property you wanted was Park Place and Boardwalk.
Yeah. But you know what, though? And what I love about cash flow in terms of Monopoly didn't give you the opportunity to relatable to you.
Correct. Because you didn't start from that low. Well, you did, because you had to go around.
You had your money, you're rolling dice and you're going around, but it wasn't like, I never looked at Monopoly and thought, this is my life. Because it was posed as a game, right? So it was playing, you're in this world.
Yeah.
Not my world, but you're in this world. And in this world, this is what you can do to operate. But I never associated with being my world. Correct. And this is how I can live. So that's why I love cash flow. And Robert, you can send me my check for the advertisement. Yeah.
I'm on the bandwagon now. So Robert Kiyosaki, Not everything you say, I 100% agree with. I'm gonna let you know. So if you want to come on the show and debate it, let's do it. But cash flow is it. Cash flow is it.
Yeah,
There's another guy down in Tampa, black dude that made this board game. Him and his son. Man, I forgot the name of it. But next show I'll plug that one too.
Love it, love it. Well, man, we're gonna go on a quick break, and we'll be back with our guests. All right, everyone. All right, travelers. All right, we are back. Man, our favorite part of this show. I say that every single week, but it really is. I mean, Marlon and I, we talk about our journeys, and you guys see a little bit what we do. But the highlight is just bringing people on from across the world or all around the world to come share their story with us. So you can see the behind the scenes as well. And today, we don't want to be biased to, we want to show you that success, this journey, the behind the scenes, the ups and downs, the journey in itself, it's not unique to just people located in certain demographics or geography. And I think we've shown that to you guys over and over and over again by the different guests that we have. But man, it's always special when we get someone from across the seas to come onto our show and just share their perspective. And today we have none other than Chris Morrison that hails out of Australia. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sydney, Australia, to be specific, and I'm so grateful to be here, guys. Thank you so much. I've already had fun so far with the pre-game chat.
Yeah, yes, love it, man. It's an honor to have you on, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So why don't you start off, Chris, with just sharing just a little bit about yourself. Who is Chris Morrison?
Sure. That's a great question, and I think that the best way to explain it is that Chris Morrison is an ever-evolving person, and he's never one person in any moment in time. But for me, at this point in time, I am a sales trainer. We run a sales training company that serves the marketing agency space. We have 100 or so clients across the majority of the US. 99% of our clients are in the US. I have a team of 6, and we do multi-6 figures sometimes per month, which is pretty cool. And the journey to getting to that and the identity shifts that have happened through that period of time have always been hard. They've never been easy. They've sucked every time, and it felt like I was getting my soul taken from me every single time as well. But I grew up probably not too dissimilarly to all of the people that listen to this stuff right now as well. I didn't necessarily have a bad family, but I got into bad situations quite a lot. I had family who were, how do I best explain this without exposing? Let's just call
your limitations.
Yeah. Let's just call them shady groups and gangs, right? And I grew up with a lot of that same mindset. I was never not in trouble with the police to some degree. I've had guns pulled on me. I've had people try to stab me. I've had, all the things that you wouldn't want to happen, I've had happen. I've had, in one day for some offenses, I had 68 charges to my name. This is when I was 17. So you're talking a whole lifetime ago, right?
Yeah.
And I started shifting things around and lost a whole little weight. I was like, if I'm trying to think of pounds, but like in kilos, it was like 100 kilos, and then went down to like 65. It's like I like lost half my weight essentially, right? Pretty much, or 35% of my weight. I was a little fat. I used to get like ridiculed at school. I had all the childhood fears and traumas that everyone goes, oh my God, this is why you are so up, whatever it is, right? Like I had all that stuff. And went into a role in sales in the sports nutrition industry. And my understanding was that I got a role at a supplement store on a Sunday after, like it was a Sunday casual position, which I'm fairly sure that the actual position was designed to make sure that someone's there to make sure the shop doesn't burn down. There was no real purpose other than that being the role in itself. And being from the fitness industry and a personal trainer at the time and all sort of stuff, I was, just happy to be there and help people through that journey at the same time as well. Which then I fell in love with the process more so of communicating with someone and helping them shift beliefs to a point where they decided to make a huge change and being able to do it without necessarily needing to be with them while they're training, through giving them a training program and giving them like nutrition guidance and everything else at the same time too. And I also found that the more times I was able to do that, the more people would actually say, hey, this is amazing, and send more people to me. And I was able to make a lot of money for this company. And I ended up becoming a store manager, ended up becoming like second highest person in the company for sales across like 400 or 500 people, something like that, right? I then went into an account management role for a sports nutrition company based in Toronto, Canada. So I was averaging at about 85 to 90 flights per year across different continents and all the different cool stuff that happens across those. I also had, through that period of time, I went from being an account manager through to a national sales manager and looking after probably 100 or so reps under me and managing about 100 million in sales a year, which was pretty cool. Came back to Australia, had another role here where I was working with someone that had a similar company in Australia, and we could just leverage my network and stuff to help grow a lot of the stuff they were doing here. That guy ended up, what did he do? What's the best way to explain it? He was siphoning money out of the company and ended up leaving us all high and dry to a huge degree. So like, I remember getting the call one day. It's like, hey, you got to come back and bring your car back and bring your phone back. Like we've shut the company down. You don't get paid. You don't get any of the money you owed and deserved. It was like,
Yeah.
I was like, where's Ashton Kutcher? We're getting punked right now, right? And I kind of found that day that like not everything lasts forever by any means. Then a lot of the companies that we were working with at the time actually ended up asking if I would be willing to consult to them on helping them grow the supplement stores that they had. Because the reason they were buying from me and the team that we had weren't because the products were anywhere world-class. It was because the way that we sold to them was teaching them how to sell the product through and market it more effectively, right? The reason why they like working with us and paying us as opposed to other distributors is because what we actually offered them was consulting, and we didn't realize that we were doing that. We just knew that the best way to actually sell more product was be a consultative salesperson, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds ridiculous. There's no chance I want to do that. I just want to go get another job. And then someone says, cool, man, that's a great story, but I'm willing to give you $5,000. And that was the day I decided that was the right thing for me to do. I'm like, cool, man. I'm a consultant now. Yeah, let's do that now. And that's kind of where my the story started for me, wanting to actually help people actually create better systems and stuff in their own businesses, if that makes sense. And since then, I've had a whole lot of different experience with business coaching and going through the process of like helping major change in different organizations, which is really, really like, I'm very grateful for that at the same time as well. This is my third coaching business that I have right now. This business is specifically focused on what I mentioned before, being sales training for agencies. How that came about was because I just ran a program where there was no niche. That was just like a sales training program. Agencies joined, and then they got the best results out of everyone and ended up moving into that as a niche to go down, and ended up building a team of people around me who have all owned an agency doing at least $100,000 a month. So everyone that they're learning from in my team all have experiential based knowledge to help people through this stuff, as opposed to just us teaching some random, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that sort of like gives you hopefully a bit of a backstory to like the main points of what got me to where I am right now. And I guess that will help you guys draw upon some stuff to ask questions, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Rick.
No, I love it. I love it, man. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Man, you know, go back, you know, to that Chris that was trying to figure things out, that when someone looked at him, they would probably looked at him and said, man, this kid gets kicked out of these classrooms, gets kicked out of the school, gets kicked out of here. He's not going to amount to anything. You know, as teachers or whatever it may be. Talk about that, Chris, and kind of things that started clicking for you as you started kind of growing into yourself.
Can I preface this by saying that the more people who say you're doing a good job, the further you are away from having good motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm experiencing this right now where people are going, dude, you're crushing it. This is so good. Like, you should be so proud of yourself. And I'm like, could someone just tell me I suck so I have a reason to go do something? Seriously, right? Like, can someone just tell me I suck at something so I can actually have a reason to prove them wrong? Like, seriously, that was like the mindset that I have around this stuff right now. I don't know. I was like the fat kid that grew up in school. I used to get teased all the time. And I think that I was always like a fairly intelligent kid who never applied himself in any way, shape and form that was, you know, respective to school or whatever it might be, because I just didn't fit into that model of reality. I didn't like it. But when it came to the things that I was really passionate about, I was really passionate about them, and I was able to create some amazing things out of them at the same time too. But I think that the biggest thing that I was experiencing, and you know, breaking points and whatever it might be, is like the amount of self-doubt that you have within yourself is pretty big, especially, and this is like the shifting sort of things sometimes when I prefaced this and opened up by saying that I wish people would doubt me more now, right? But in the beginning, when you have people doubting you, it's almost like you need one person to believe in you, and it shifts, and it's like a cycle of different things, right?
Correct.
It's like you just need one person to believe in you in the beginning because you don't have that doubt behind yourself. But as you get further on, you're like, I want people to doubt me again. It's weird. It's so weird. But for me, right, like, I think that one of the biggest things that people experience is something called imposter syndrome, whether you guys are familiar with that or not. I'm not sure whether people listening to this right now are familiar with it. I'm not sure. But I'm also under the belief that, like, that imposter syndrome as a whole is something that you need to experience. And if you try to run from it, you're not going big enough or trying to live to the expectations that you truly have of yourself at the end of the day at the same time too, right? And for me, I always look for uncommon motivation at the end of the day, right? Like, some of the biggest turning points for me have typically come from, and this is the way that I view motivation as a whole anyway, right? Because the question you essentially asked is like, what were the turning points and what were your thoughts and stuff too, right? For me, I think every day can be a turning point if you frame things correctly. And I'll illustrate with a story that didn't necessarily come from my life, but it triggered something in my own life for me. Are you guys familiar with who Jesse Itzler is?
No.
Okay, so Jesse Itzler, he is just a huge influencer in the entrepreneurial space. I'm fairly sure he's married to Sarah Blakely, who is the girl who owns Spanx, which does it's $1 billion company, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I know her.
He was on I think she or he was on Valuetainment.
Yeah, it was him. I think they both were with at different times.
Yeah.
And there was something that he said on there, and he asked the person whoever the host was the question of, you know, how old are your parents? And he said, you know, 75 years old. And he said, cool. So the average life expectancy is, you know, 80 years old, right? How many times per year do you see your parents? And he goes, you know, maybe 2. And he goes, well, how about thinking about life like this, as opposed to the way you have been thinking, where you know that there is 5 years left potentially in your parents' lives, right? But if you think of it in respect that if you only see them 2 times per year, that means you only have 10 times left to see your parents ever again. Right? You only have 10 opportunities to experience your parents ever again. And when you start looking through the eye's perception of that, it changes the way you operate on a daily basis, if that makes sense. Because the questions you would typically ask yourself then is like, would the frequency at which you see your parents change? Would the way you operate around the way you appreciate your parents change? Would the way that you actually try to do your best to help your children align or extract out of the values that your parents taught you, would you put more effort into that, right? And it gives you this whole different perspective of the cost of inaction as opposed to the cost of action, right? And gets you out of the normal cycle and loop of different things at the same time as well.
Yeah.
And for me, I typically look at the cost of inaction and everything as opposed to the cost of action sometimes. The average person will think that, okay, cool, if I do this, what if I fail? What if I do this? Which is the cost of action that they're thinking about, which is the fears behind it, right? But when it comes to, you might, like, the reality being you have 10 times left to see your parents, it changes your whole perspective on life. And similarly, in the respects that, imagine if you only had 100 Mondays left on Earth. Right. If you had 100 Mondays left on Earth, right? You only had 100 Mondays to set your family up so they never have to worry about financial position ever again. To make sure that every single person that you have the ability to actually, touch in the way, and I'll define the word touch in the way that is. You say that you want to make an impact, whatever it might be, right? But like, if you only had 100 Mondays left to do that, how differently would you be living your life and operating in some way, shape, or form? Would you quit the job you currently have now and pursue the dream that you want? Would you, what is it that you would change that would make life different if you knew you only had 100 Mondays left? And for me, this is the way that I think about things too, right? Because the cost of inaction is so much more powerful than the cost of action. This is something I talk to a lot of our clients about in aspects of like, you might say you don't want to make sales activities and do calls, but how is your daughter going to go to Disneyland without the money that you need from them?
Yeah.
Right. So like for me,
I'm going to Disneyland.
Yeah, no, but like, but the question's like, so, how are you going to break it to Jasmine that you're not going to Disneyland in 2 months?
Yeah.
And the whole thing changes. Like, oh, I'm just being in my own way. Cool. I should probably change something about that. Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, for me, right, is like, the reason why I illustrated with this as opposed to saying within my own stories, because I live this on a daily basis, right? On a daily basis, you have to get out of your own way. You have to ask yourself better questions on a daily basis to make sure that you actually are in alignment with who you want to be, because you may only have 100 Mondays left. Seriously, you might not even get those 100.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And for me, one of the biggest things that I have that sits in my gut and it makes me feel sick is I have this like up thought in my head where like I just don't want to be in the graveyard with regrets.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
correct.
I wish I would have. I wish I could have.
Wish I would have. I wish I could have. I should have.
Yeah.
And I think there's a million ways I could have illustrated that with my own story, but I think it helps whoever's listening to this right now. It helps you, the person who's listening, to have it illustrated through the way I just explained it, because you start seeing your own experience as opposed to mine.
Yeah.
It's very true. Wow. You said imposter syndrome, right? For some of the listeners out there that don't know exactly what this, could you break that down for them so that they will know, because there's a lot. I'll let you break it down, then we'll get into it.
I think imposter syndrome it's when you feel no longer like yourself. And there's typically a continuum of time it takes for you to realize that you've changed and shifted identity, and times you have to realize it for you to realize that you have changed. But that's within yourself, and I'll illustrate in a story in a second. But then there's also the ingredients that add up to imposter syndrome are also the perceptions that people on the outside of you have of you at the same time as you having your perception of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So people who are your family members, people who are your friends of long-time friends, when you decide to make a positive change of some sort that they don't align with or understand, they will doubt you to the point that makes you doubt yourself. And imposter syndrome is actually a form of doubt to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And typically it's because you don't believe that that it's possible for you to change, or you make the changes, but because of the way that your brain has been thinking, you haven't realized that you shifted your identity to some degree, and you go back and you rubber band to the person that you were in the beginning, and then that's when you feel this feeling of I'm an imposter. As a great example, right? Like people who don't have a lot of money, who go and make a lot of money, who haven't realized that they have had to become a different person through that journey, actually end up losing everything or sabotaging all of it because they haven't realized that they've changed as a person. And it's typically because the people who are on the outside of them have a different perception of their own self-perception, which changes their whole reality and makes them feel misaligned with everything.
Hey, so some of our listeners right now, they paused it and they're now checking back and saying, wow, am I an imposter? or am I going through that syndrome? Or how do I look at myself, and how does my friends look at me? How does my family look at me? Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think it's a good place to be, or what do you think about being at that imposter, or having that syndrome, or you're in the middle of it? What do you feel about it?
I don't think it means anything. I just think it's an experience. It's unavoidable for you. So you get your own choice as to whether you say it's good or bad, but understand that if you say that it's bad, you create more friction for yourself. And if you say it's good, you get the opportunity to accept it and move through it a lot quicker. Yeah. So it's up to your own discretion and choice as to how you experience imposter syndrome. But in my experience, the quicker you choose to accept it and go, oh, cool, I'm just shifting identity right now, the quicker things actually move for you and the further you typically tend to go. Otherwise, you create this internal resistance because you are pushing against it consistently. Yeah. You get to choose. You get to choose your experience in that way.
Exactly. I love how you express that, Chris, because for me, if you ask me that question, I would say imposter syndrome is many times is directly associated with your growth, and is necessary in your growth, right? Because
it's unavoidable.
Yes.
Completely unavoidable.
Exactly. It's part of the process. And I got stories on it, but for those that are out there that, like you said, associated with a negative thing, they get into those situations where they feel that imposter syndrome and they close doors on themselves. Why? Because it's pulling them out of a comfort zone. So they go back to who they were previously, and that person previously didn't produce to the level that they actually want to be at. So then they build that frustration in their life, you know?
And they go back to comfortable? They're going back to comfortable, Rick?
But what I also find when that happens, because this, one of the biggest things that I try to share with a lot of clients or people who are crazy enough to follow along with the stuff that I say, right? Is that the further you go on, the louder it gets, right? So the further I've gone in my entrepreneurial journey, and even just like journey of self-discovery, because if I'm honest, the biggest personal development course you'll ever do is running a business, right? The biggest personal development course you'll ever do is staying committed to something for the long term, because you have to overcome yourself in so many different ways. And it's my experience that the voices get louder and the commitment needs to be tighter to your growth, because it gets harder, not easier.
Correct.
Yeah,
and it's only when you accept that it's going to get harder and you prepare yourself for the hard. I'm like a huge lover of David Goggins, right? Like the dude, you just can't with his mindset, right?
Yeah.
You know, like his cookie jar analogy and all the ways where you can take off the mental limiters, if you want to use those as the example, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I think that this is like some of my favorite stuff to talk about, right? Because like, you know, there's the expectation of like when I get there, but the problem is that there never comes, right?
Correct.
You've never arrived.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you've arrived, you feel like you lose it all, right?
Yeah.
And then it creates this cognitive dissonance where you feel like things should be going right, but I don't align with that. And oh my God. And when you do get to a huge point, there is not one person that I've ever met that doesn't sabotage it to some degree. There's no one. No one has been able to avoid sabotage, because you also need to experience sabotage to realize you're sabotaging.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I've understood as well.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that this is actually manifested for me in my life as of late is like, we've had to let a few team members go. And I've had to walk back into some of the sales roles in our company, which felt like a backward step for me. So I avoided it like crazy, right? I avoided it like crazy, which was sabotage, right? And it wasn't until, what the actual reality was after my own sitting with it and self-discovery is that like, I was scared that I wasn't going to be good enough when I created the process. Right? Like I created the process. And I still had these fears, like, I wasn't going to be good enough. And it wasn't until it wasn't until I'd had so much frustration. I'm like, I'm just so sick of this. I'm like, cool. How about you just get out of your own way and do it and take minor imperfect actions to build up that emotional resilience again, to actually build that confidence back in you again at the same time as well. But the longer you lean into the resistance side, the harder those smaller things on a daily basis become. And it's not until you commit. And one of the biggest things that I've shared within our programs and all this stuff is like, the goal of consistency is better than the goal itself. And the way that I'll illustrate this is that instead of saying I want to actually make $100,000, $1 million this year, whatever it is, the goal should be, I want to work out how many days I can stay consistent in a row doing these tasks until I'm able to optimize and delegate that to someone else without sabotaging them or myself through that process. The goal of consistency is so much more important because it builds the emotional resilience within inside you.
Yes, it's Chris, you hit the nail on the head for me. A lot of people want to set the goal, but they don't want to do the work to get to the goal.
For sure.
So they think the big task is just to sit down at the beginning of the year or New Year's resolution, right?
Do your planning and
Yep. You do all your planning and you say, by the end of the year, I want to be able to do X. But month one, they're heavy on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Month two, they kind of slacken. Then they'll say, you know what happened? All right, next month I'll pick it up. Next month I'll pick it up.
About month. About a week, man.
Yeah.
But
like the second week of January is the biggest week for gym memberships. Not the first, but the second. It's always because people still have their hangover in the first week and they're still eating like fat. They're still on holidays and all that stuff as well.
Leftovers. Leftovers.
Yeah. You still got Christmas ham and everything else as well. You know what I mean? So, the second week in the gyms is the highest revenue weeks for many gyms, and that's it goes January and then it just drops the off for the rest of the year. It's wild. Wow.
Hey, they probably still have the picture of like how you have Iron Mike back there. They probably still have that picture in their room, looking at it every day and like, all right, next week I'll start. Next week I'll start.
But it's interesting, right? Like that model of thought doesn't like. No one's exempt from that thinking sometimes, though. Right?
Yeah. Nobody is.
No one's exempt from that thinking, right? Like even I was like, man, cool. I'll start doing sales activity again on Monday. I'm like, wait a minute. That's not going to happen for me, because every single day now I'm literally sitting there thinking, I know I'm not living up to my potential, and it's making me feel like an absolute piece of shit. I don't have a better term.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a piece of shit, not actually having the knowing that I'm not taking the responsibility, which creates more of that imposter syndrome, which makes you start to doubt yourself more, which just the thing. There was an amazing. I wonder if I can share this just so you guys can see this.
You've been listening to the Success Journey Show. You can check us out on our social media on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, Also on our website, thesuccessjourneyshow.com. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, here we go. This is the image of illustration here, right? It's showing up daily, what we think that it means, right? But what it actually means is just making sure that you stay consistent on a daily basis, because you're not going to be able to work at full capacity every single day. But every day you don't turn up, you rob yourself of the progression that you could be having to some degree. And that's what creates that cognitive dissonance where I should be here, but I'm here, and what the f is going wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to share that because I feel like the illustration of that makes a huge difference in what the commitment to consistency could look like for you on a daily basis. And it can f you up if you don't follow that, because you think that you need to be at your best every single day when you just need to show up every day.
But I mean, it makes sense as we say it, but how do we as people, why do we have that mentality that, hey, showing up every day means go, 120. I know one of my good mentors like, 120, the day I die, but in reality, no one can go 120 every single day.
Yeah.
Or 120 looks different based off of the parameters that the day brings, right? So the results may look different. But why do people think that is full throttle or nothing?
I think it's because people are bought into an all or nothing culture as opposed to, and if I'm honest, people suck at all or nothing as well. People cheat in relationships. People cheat themselves out of results and all sort of stuff as well when they aren't buying into the goal of consistency. Like that is the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is consistency. Yeah. Right. And if more people understood that the goal was consistency, not the result, irrespective of the thing that you are talking about, whether it be a business, whether it be the body, whether it be your finances, whether it be the relationship, right? The goal is, and it's also managing your own expectations of what the work to actually get whatever you want is, and then realizing that there's a clear picture of, oh, right, this is not going to be as easy as I wanted it to be, because no one expects it to be easy. They all go, yeah, I know it's going to be hard, but everyone deep down wants it to be easy. Right?
Correct.
No one is exempt from going, I wish this was easier. Right? No one doesn't think those thoughts in some way, shape, and form on some day, right? Yeah. But the truth and fact of the matter is that by changing the focus of, okay, I'm going to suck 90% of these days, right? But if I just show up, at least I'll build the experience, which will make me suck less the next day. Or that's the way that my very small mind thinks about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No. I like how you it's crazy because I look behind you there on the wall, and I'll let the cat out the bag, people. Like when he was first talking to me, I was like, Chris, I don't know about Chris. No, I'm joking. But then I saw his wall. That anybody that has Michael Jordan on their wall, I don't care who you are. If you have Michael Jordan on your wall, you're okay with me. And I think Michael Jordan exemplifies, he's probably at he's probably at an imposter syndrome right now because of where he's used to winning. And he's consistent, right? He was consistent when he was just a player, he was consistent, but then he changed to a owner, back to a player, back to an owner. And now he's at a place where, but you see those guys, they keep on, like you're saying, the goal is to be consistent. So how do you think, if you could be in Michael Jordan's mind right now, what do you think he's thinking in that frame? Like, hey, I used to be a winner. Now I'm a business owner, right? One of the only Black guys that have a business in a team, majority team owner in the NBA. So that's a win. But at the same time, your team is not at the top, which he's used to be at the top. How just put yourself in his shoes. What would be going through your mind right now?
I think that thinking creates disharmony in people, and I'll explain why. The way you just illustrated that illustrates that the only way that you are winning is if you are actually putting shots in the net, right? Yeah. And I think that that's a really poor way of thinking about what winning actually truly is. And the way that I try to illustrate winning as a whole. I actually spoke publicly with our clients about this the other day, is that to most people, winning doesn't necessarily need to mean that they won the game or whatever it is, right? Winning is progression to whatever degree that is, right? Because Michael Jordan wasn't always the top player in the NBA, right? But he progressed until he became that, right?
Yeah.
And I would be willing to bet if you go and listen to The Last Dance, right? Like one of the biggest things they talk about is like going back and watching game tape. And the reason why they go back and watch game tape is looking at what they could have done better, how they've progressed, and what areas there needs to be for opportunity for them to progress further and look at those to change to be better again. And I think that not the average person, the person who knows that they are, the person who knows that they have a bigger calling inside, but they are acting like an average version of themselves, and they know that there's a disparity between the two, probably isn't creating winning thoughts inside them and isn't creating daily momentum by asking the question of, instead of thinking about, did I win today, asking the question of like, what was it that I progressed in today that's going to help me win? Right? I find that by stacking up the mini progressions on a daily basis gets you to feel a feeling of momentum, which makes you walk in swinging your with big energy, going, oh my God, no one can fuck with me now, which I promise you is what Michael would have been thinking about. He's going, cool, I have it over all of these people because I'm progressing here, and that's why you can't fuck with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everyone's, if you choose to use winning as the only reason to feel good, without realizing that winning as a whole is an accumulation of thousands of daily progressions in every single area.
Correct.
Sometimes as small as, cool, I progressed today because I didn't hit the snooze alarm. Right? Like that is a progression. If you have done that in the past, that is progression. Because winning is just a small accumulation of progressions over time, and realizing, but it's the focal point as well. And I'll define focal point as when you start realizing I've progressed here with my alarm not going off today. I've progressed by the extra rep I did in the gym. I progressed by the fact that I made, I'm now 18 days in a row where I've done my sales activity. I've progressed because I've done all these things. You start building up that emotional resilience again, and you're like, cool, I'm actually winning now. Things are good. And that's when you start shooting for, what was that, the 6 second shot left there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Like, did that make sense? Did that answer the question the way that you have?
Yes, that answered my question perfectly, because I would think that Michael Jordan is a person that likes to operate at a high optimum, but he understands. I think he understands. He owns the Hornets, which was never a dominant team, and he has to build it from wherever it needs to be. So
think about what he just did last year, right?
Correct.
Rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year.
When has he ever brought in someone of that caliber to the league?
Correct. He tried. So now that's a win for him, right? Yeah.
Sure.
And then now they're actually doing good playoffs. They're in the playoffs, but they have to play their bottom four, but they still have to play to get into the tournament. But they're progressing over the years. They have gained more wins.
Absolutely. The small
I think
wins.
for Michael Jordan, he's looking at that, just like you're saying. A lot of people don't understand the short-term goals, which you're talking about, and the long-term goals. And the short-term goals will help you to generate that long-term goal.
Even if you don't, because I have like milestones that we shoot towards. It's typically not goals, it's milestones, but I am in higher momentum when I'm focusing on how we've progressed today as opposed to caring about the goal, if I'm honest. And I think another good analogy to illustrate it with is like people want the cake without realizing the ingredients that go into it, and the time it's meant to spend in the oven, and the icing that's meant to go on it, and the ingredients for the icing at the same time as well. They all want an amazing tasting cake, but don't realize what really goes into it at the end of the day. And if you get, and the thing is, like in in the life cycle of a cake, let's call it that, you have progressed and you have won these small battles if you put the right ingredients in at the right measurements, at the right time, in the right oven, at the right temperature. Like all of those things are mini wins that add up to being the delicious cake that you wanted to eat. And I think that's just the way that I illustrate that stuff for myself.
If it says bake at 300, you can't bake it at 600 and think it's going to get done at a faster time. You can't.
Yeah, you just destroy your oven.
300. Yeah,
you just destroy the oven. You just destroy the oven. That's it.
Oh man, Chris, man. I mean, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Just your perspective, way you think about things, and process it. And you talked a little bit about your success in your career, but really, what I really love about this is you're talking about the ingredients that makes up the success, right? Because your success is going to be your success. No one's going to come and duplicate Chris's success because it's Chris' success, right? But what they can duplicate is what are the ingredients that I've put together that I have adopted in my life in order to obtain the success or eat the cake that I'm eating now.
100%.
And what I love that you said earlier is, hey man, I wish someone would just say that I suck at something because I just need that push. I need that motivation. I need that, you think you can hold me on the court? Like, come on, let's go. Like, you just need something that's just push you over the edge, man. So tell us, share with our travelers, what do you do to kind of keep yourself, pushing? And I know you're looking at, the tasks that you have, the milestones that you have, and maybe that is the answer, creating the milestones. But share with our travelers, what kind of environment do you create for yourself to make sure that you're progressing every day?
I think it actually comes down to a few different approaches. I could die tomorrow. I may never get my 100 Mondays. Right? Me sitting here with you guys right now is living up to my own expectations of myself that if I were to die within my next 100 Mondays, this will live longer than I will, and more people will be able to take something away from it.
Yes, sir.
So I'm always thinking about the cost of inactions, always. The other thing that I do on a daily basis is I ask 3 questions at the end of the day is like, what was hard about today that I was able to overcome? Because that builds up the emotional resilience inside you. Where did I progress today? So I know what I progressed in. And what could I do better tomorrow that I didn't do today, right? Those 3 questions make a huge difference to be able to actually think about the progressions that you might need to take and what you can actually do to help yourself realize that you are on track. But the question of like, what was hard today helps you realize that you can overcome hard things and that you overcome hard things on a daily basis at the same time as well. And then the other one, so like uncommon motivation tactic number 483 for this podcast so far. So you got Kobe here, right?
Yes, sir.
It was only like a short clip, but like Kobe talks about his kill list when he started in the NBA.
Oh, man.
Right? And the whole premise
that kill list from his
like,
AAU.
Yeah, quite literally, right?
Yeah.
And the whole premise of it is like when people aren't directly giving you that, motivation of like you suck or whatever it is, right? It's like, well, how is, like for me, it's like, how is the market telling me I suck by people trying to steal my clients right now? I'm like, oh, you just joined my kill list. I'm going to destroy you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and little things like that. And it's, it's uncommon motivation that people would think like, oh, you got to believe in yourself. No, just think about the people trying to steal your clients right now and try to destroy their life because of it.
Hey, you talked about, it was funny because they said Michael Jordan actually made up some of the stories in his head.
100%.
Because he had to find a way to motivate himself.
He needed a trigger.
He said, I'm the king of the castle when I was playing. When he was at his height, he said, I'm the king of the castle playing basketball. Do you know what it takes for me to wake up to say, I'm going to go play basketball when I know I could destroy everybody out there? He had to make up something like, this guy said something What was it? The one coach said, he said, the coach don't treat the players right. And he killed the team because the coach didn't, he made that up.
It's literally finding something, right? Like everyone's emotional triggers are different, right? Everyone knows deep down inside what makes them tick, but they don't use it to their advantage for some reason, right? Michael knew how to use his. And that's why he was able to overcome his own. Because if he didn't find those little emotional triggers, he would have not, maybe he wouldn't have been Michael Jordan.
Correct.
Right? Like they definitely wouldn't have, like they wouldn't be up there right now, and there wouldn't be a series called The Last Dance. Do you understand what I mean? Right? Like,
correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now I see those pictures around you. Well, you know, I want to ask you this. You're a person that you run your business, and you have so many different people, and you kind of touched on it with when you deal with so many people, because I used to deal with sales. I'm in the military, so I was a Marine Corps recruiter,
cool.
And I had different recruiters, and each recruiter definitely had different motivators that I could drive them. Like you said, one guy could tell him, like, listen, if you don't make your calls and your sales activities, because you know everybody hate the phones, everybody hate having to hit all the different milestones that tell you that what your numbers, that what the statistics actually tell you what you need to do to close on whatever. So one guy would be like, hey, I mean, you want to go home and see your wife, right? One guy simply, he wanted to just go work out. So what do you do? In a company that's so large, you say you have how many, about 100 different people?
About 100 clients or whatever it is, yeah.
About 100 clients.
We have a small team. It's like five team members.
5 people, but even 5 team members, how do you find those motivators? What do you do with your guys to motivate them? And how do you learn about their motivators? What do you do?
Authenticity is the first thing that I want to say, right? Like, not hiding from the fact that the conversation, like a conversation that I had with one of our team members, actually pretty much every team member that comes in, right? I have a conversation of like, what the are you here for? What do you actually want out of your life? And how can we actually make sure that aligns with the way that you do things here, right? So as an example, right, like everyone has the things that they want in their life. Someone might want to buy a car. They might want to take their wife away on a trip. They might want to start their own business, but they're working inside yours right now for whatever intent and purpose that may drive for them right now at the same time too. And then it's about creating their key performance indicators that they tie to the main thing that they said that they wanted, right? So as an example, we have a client success or account manager, if you want to call it, on our team, who wants to buy a Jeep. And there was something else that he wanted to do as well. But the key performance indicators are set up in such a way that the money that he makes actually makes him just enough that in 6 months' time, not just enough, but I mean, like it's set up from a commission-based structure that in 6 months' time, so he'll be able to buy that. And that's the thing that we focus on, right? So understanding that the team members are here for this thing and then using that to your advantage to say, dude, you do want that car, right? It's like, yeah. And what was it? What was it about the car that you wanted again? So I'm sick of this thing, blah, blah, blah. Cool, man. And how, but by not doing this, how much closer do you get to it? And then you have a whole different conversation around like, was that goal the right goal or whatever it is, right? But sometimes it's deeper. Sometimes it's like, cool, man, you got problems at home with your wife right now. Do you want that to continue? Right? Because like the problem is probably money. Because that's where most problems actually come from. And if you have less of it, then there's going to be more problems at home. So wouldn't it make more sense to have more of it and have less problems there? It's like, oh, yeah, you're probably right. Cool, so let's do this thing about that.
Phone. Yeah.
Let's do something about that then. Yeah, let's do that.
Man, I love it, Chris. I love it, man. We usually ask this question to all of our guests that comes on. And it's more of a reflection question of a time in your past where you're like, hey, I wish I had 1 minute just to sit with you and just share what I know now to that Chris of past. When would that time frame be for you? And what would you say to that Chris? 1 minute you had with him.
I think too many times come up, but I'll illustrate with, it's every time there is an identity shift happening that I'm not aware of. It's every time that I feel a level of imposter syndrome that I don't know that I'm experiencing right now because I haven't made the conscious connection about it right now.
Yeah.
Because the feeling that you have is that everything doesn't feel right anymore. And it's all like, consciously you know that you're going to get through it, but emotionally you feel like you're dying because you are like caterpillar through to a butterfly in the cocoon. You're coming out the other side of it, and you have to be quiet and you have to do things in that way. There's been a few times, right? Like my I think it was my 29th birthday. I was in bed crying because the business wasn't working. Right? I was like, man, this is like, I'm letting everyone down. I'm in a position where I don't know if this is going to turn around or not. And the fact of the matter was, it's just like, it was me. I was the problem, right? And it's just like, there's so many times across my life where that is repeated, and like the quicker you grow, the more times it happens in frequency. But you just learn to understand that this is happening. It's like, cool, I'm just in an identity shift right now. But it's typically in the identity shift where I find that there is more of that feeling of like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. And I wish that I could just remind myself, and I'm clearly honest with you right now, I can tell myself, someone else can tell me everything is going to be okay, but you don't believe it when you're in that state. Like you don't consciously believe it, right? And I wish that there was a pill or a magic thing that could make me feel like that wasn't the case at all those periods in time. But looking back in reflection, they have been the things that have helped me create the values that I hold, and they are so important. Every one of those times has made me either a better leader or made me a better family person or whatever it is, right? They've all held and created so much weight behind the values that I will fight for, but you don't realize it at the time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Rick, what that clip that you sent me? Hard times make. Oh man, I forgot what it is. It was very. It's very deep. It in essence just exactly what you're talking about. Those times that you went through that just made you understand, and you understand more who you were, and it gave you a chance to stand firm on some of the values because you used that to get through those terrible times. Beautiful.
I think a lot of people don't understand what their values are, and that's a problem. Like they've never clearly defined what's important to them.
Correct.
They're willing to fight for. And I'm only very infant in my journey around the actual value definition stuff for myself right now. But I always find that when I'm no longer operating in the defined values that I really find important for myself, that's when I feel the most misaligned with my life, and that's when I feel the worst about it. So if you feel misaligned with what's happening in your life right now, it's probably because you aren't operating in the values that you know are important to you, and you're f***ing up your life because of it, and you know that you're going to go around that cycle, and that's why you hate the things you're doing right now.
Hey, Chris, you gave us a reason to come to Sydney, man.
Please come over, man. Absolutely.
You ball or whatever? You play ball?
Man, I'm only just getting my hand function back right now. I broke my hand. So I haven't actually been able to do, I love shooting hoops, but I can't do shit at the moment because I'm still in hand therapy. Yeah, but by the time you guys are actually allowed to come to the fucking country because of this bullshit that's happening in the world, maybe I'll be able to shoot some hoops again.
Yeah, right.
Definitely be able to come down there and
oh man, I'd love to have you guys here.
Yeah, we'd like to do a trip, a success journey trip to some of the places. We're kind of selfish within this because Ricky and I are going to talk about a lot of the stuff that you talked about. It helps us affirm ourselves in some of the beliefs that we have and some of the things that we're doing. And selfishly, we have what we call, we have people around the world that we can go to that would say, hey, 100%. Chris, we're going to be in town. Hook us up.
100%, man. That's the beauty of being able to be selfish when you're honest about it.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Sure. Yes.
Man, the more that you're honest about it, the easier it is to be who you're actually Hey.
Exactly. Hey, Chris, man, before we let you go, I don't want to forget, share with our travelers, listeners, is there any way they can connect with you? They love what they heard. They want to have more conversation with you a little bit more deeper about maybe sales or whatever it may be, even if you're looking for somebody to join your team, where can they connect with you? Where can they learn more about you?
I think the place that I'm the most active is just on Facebook. Facebook Messenger is the best way to get in touch with me specifically. And I think that my Facebook link is like Facebook.com/Chris.em.96. I've never been able to change the actual thing on that, which is really annoying. But my name on Facebook is Chris Morrison, and that's where I spend most of my time on a daily basis. We run our whole business through Facebook. So.
Oh wow, love it.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, it was a pleasure having you on the show here.
Thanks, guys.
We really appreciate your time and just your insights. Travelers all around the world, if you are in Sydney, Australia, just look them up, check Chris out on Facebook, connect. But yeah, this has been another phenomenal show, and we wouldn't be here without our listeners all around the world. We wouldn't be here without you. So we want to say that we love you, we appreciate you. Go leave a review, comment, share this episode, and we will be back with you next week at the same time at the same place on the Success Journey Show. Everyone have a good one. Peace.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem.
You've been listening to The Success Journey Show, where your dreams, drive, determination, and diligence are the foundation to success. For more information, check out thesuccessjourneyshow.com. The Journey Squad is here helping you to your destination.